Welcome to the Festival of Storytellers.
I can't tell you how excited I am to be on right now. It's been a couple of weeks of excitement, getting prepared, and I've done a lot of things in my life, but this has got to be close to the top.
Thank you, and Reader's Magnet, and thank you, John, for putting this forth and taking the chance on us authors in presenting this out to the world.
I've enjoyed this immensely, Joanne.
Ellie, so have I. Thank you for who you are, and thank you, Reader's Magnet. You all are beautiful, and you've worked so very hard, and we are blessed.
We are.
I thank everybody that's involved with this process, because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers. We thank Reader's Magnet and everybody that's involved. I love Reader's Magnet. They say, we share your stories with the world.
Hello, everybody. This is Bruce Leiter, the writer. I would like to welcome you to my booth, and I thought I'd start out today, after being live instead of dead. Anyway, being live for 2 days. I thought I'd start out today sharing with you some of the background to my books, especially my novels. In that I've almost always been in favor of the underdog in life. My Facebook friends, maybe sometimes that word friends is in quotes, have accused me by supporting certain political candidates. They've accused me of being a racist. Well, it couldn't be further from the truth. Because when I was in elementary school, grade school we called it, the bullies had their way with me, and I was very insecure because my parents were basically divorced within marriage, and because of that insecurity, they took advantage of me in terms of putting me down, and sometimes physically. So ever since then, I've been very much in favor of the underdog. I became a Chicago Cub fan because the Chicago Cubs were labeled as lovable losers. Of course, that was until the 2016 World Series, which they won after being down three games to one. They came back to win the World Series at Cleveland, and they have been the underdogs though most of the time. So I've rooted for them, and I've rooted for other teams and individual players because they were underdogs. Generally in tennis and golf, the Canadians are not favored, and I lived there for 5 years, and so I kind of stick up for the Canadians in those sports. Just examples of the types of things I do to support underdogs, and certainly people who are being abused and disadvantaged have a soft soft part in my heart because of that they are underdogs. So um, that continued throughout my sports fandom. You know, I'm a sports fan, and it's continued in my political life as well. I'm just a casual political observer because I don't have a lot of time, you know, to watch the political world, but I do it a little bit on Facebook. Uh, I it was interesting with Facebook. I tried to get friends, you know, for a long time, several years, and I couldn't get them. But suddenly, uh, the 25 to 30 friend requests came to my inbox every day. And if God is going to give me friends, I'm not going to turn them down, you know. And so I ended up with 5,000 friends. I don't know how that happened or why God did that, but often there's opportunity to support people who are being abused or mistreated, and also to stick up for the Christian faith. Um, uh, as a result of something that comes up on Facebook, and that happens quite often. So I'm thankful that God has made me a champion of the underdog as much as I can do that. I'm physically limited in a lot of ways, with physical strength being at a low ebb because of pain in my life, but God has used me in writing. You'll know if you read my novels, you'll find in the first book, divided together, 2084, which you can find out more about in my website, growingtoknowgod.org or com, either one. Growing to Know God. And you can find out there how to obtain it. But in that first novel, Farhan is a Christian in a Muslim land where Christians are a small minority, and he is definitely an underdog there, but he's also a criminologist. He teaches it in the university, and he's part of the police group that investigates major crimes, and they have major crimes, several of them during the novel, of course, and so yeah, he is respected among them, but he's the only Christian among the Muslims in that group, and he has discussions with his Muslim partner, a woman who can do that because she's part of a small minority among the Muslims. So basically they're both underdogs in some ways. So that is the kind of character that I have developed, and you'll see what happens in their adventures and how they discuss their differing beliefs with each other that motivate them to seek justice and to protect life. Well, in the second novel, it becomes all the more the kind of underdog motif, because Farhan takes his family back to America, back to the United States, and he finds himself in the middle of an atheist culture. This is in 2094. The first one was in 2084, but by that time, atheism has become a large majority of Americans. And in this book, it explores what can happen to a minority Christian family in the middle of atheists in their neighborhood and on the police force. And so he teams up with an atheist who with whom he discusses the belief and non-belief, and along the way, as they investigate some very violent crimes, and you'll see the results to that if you read that book. And so a decade later, in 2104, next Wednesday, divided together, same name, divided together, because Farhan is divided in his religious beliefs or non-beliefs with his partners, and in a lot of ways with his culture in those first two novels. He he's divided, but they're working on the same purpose to preserve life, and therefore they're together too. So that's where the title comes from, Divided Together. In 2104, that novel will come out next Wednesday, on the 17th of November, and in that one, he has gained a lot of respect, but the atheist influence in America has decreased a lot, and the Hindu interest, the Hindu influence, has gained a lot of support, because the Hindus are more tolerant towards other beliefs, and the atheists that he encountered in the second novel are very aggressive. Take care of that one. They're very aggressive. So the Hindus are not aggressive. They welcome many beliefs from other cultures and religions. So he is a little bit of an underdog in terms of the Hindu influences in 2104 in the future. So it's very interesting to me that God takes care of the underdog who believes in Him, and that shows up. But I don't preach in any of these novels, though I was a preacher for 27 years. I switch gears and I write books of a spiritual flavor, and you'll find that there are discussions in all three novels with the people of different faiths or non-faith, between Farhan and them, and it's left up to you as the reader what to believe. But the witness to Christian faith, of course, is there, and also with the other ones. But the center of the second and third novels, especially the second one, where the Christian family is threatened by the aggressive atheists, it's the family is the center of both of those novels, because they have to be mutually supportive, and because of the culture around them, they are bonded closer and closer together. And during those two novels, the family goes, Farhan's family goes on weekend stress relieving outings to various places in the Midwest. Of course, they live in Indianapolis, and you'll see that those are very surprising outings that they take, and I'll leave it at that. So yeah, I've always been in favor of the underdog, unless I have other loyalties in teams and sports personalities. But I thought I'd share with you that interest of mine that shows up quite strongly in my novels. So, are there any questions from you at this point? No questions that I can see. Well, goodbye. No. I thought that I would especially highlight 2104. Oh, there's one. A question from the certain fairgoer. How many books have you published? Well, in collaboration with one other author, I've published one book like that where we work together on it. But I have published 9 books, um, straight straight nonfiction. My God biography, which I have published, what God has done. My true dramatic God biography, what God has done in my life. This is the longest book I wrote, and that's one of the straight nonfiction books. And I haven't highlighted this one, but I'll mention it. News tries to control you, and that's another straight nonfiction. And God first guided me into writing devotional Bible studies. So I thought that would be that I would have many devotional Bible studies to help people on certain topics with biblical teaching. But yeah, I wrote Be Bolder, Growing Older. That was accepted by a traditional company. I also wrote another one about pleasure. And but then God, it surprised me. God gave me a strong idea. I was to write mystery novels. Now that's quite a change. And it was. And how do I possibly learn how to write a mystery novel when basically I haven't I haven't written anything like that. So I read 15 mystery novels to let the authors teach me how to write a mystery novel. Like Grisham and Patterson and many others, I listened to them in terms of what they do best, and I tried to incorporate that into my writing. For example, Grisham is good at setting the scene of some event, and so I do that in my novel. Patterson showed me how to run 2 parallel plots together. So I do that in some of my novels. So those are just 2 examples of many where the authors taught me. But there are some unique things in my novels too. In all my books, my 9 books that I've published, I try to have humor balance serious things, rather than just being totally serious as a mystery novel with investigations and trials and results. I try to include humor as kind of a stress reliever from all the serious business. And so that's one of the things. And also the religious discussions in my novels. That's kind of a departure from other mystery novels. But that's I feel that's kind of my unique contribution to that kind of writing. So yeah, I've done 9 books, and of all different kinds of publishing methods. My 2 books have been accepted by traditional publishers because of my submissions, and it totally blew me away when they accepted, when only less than 1% of all the submissions sent to traditional publishers are accepted. And it happened in both nonfiction and fiction for me. And, I was overjoyed when I got those acceptances. Well, I've also done self-publishing with kind of unusual books, and also I've done partnership publishing with a publisher in which you contribute a certain amount, and then that amount is taken off of your ledger when more books are sold and then you divide the royalties after that. But that's what has happened and what God has done for me. Okay, another one. What was your most favorite part on your journey while writing this book? You mean the 2104, the one that's coming out next Wednesday. When I start a novel, what's interesting to me is a lot of novel writers figure out exactly what's going to happen, or at least have an outline of what's going to happen throughout the novel. Well, I guess God didn't make me that way. So I basically, in all three novels, my journey started with somewhat of a knowledge of who the killer or whoever the criminal was going to be, and what the crime would be, or crimes. Some of the novels have more than one crime, and then the kind of a vague idea about the clue or clues that would be helpful to the investigators. Well, that's all I knew at the beginning. So I just started writing, and this subplot would come into my imagination, and that character would suddenly appear. For example, in my first book, Doubtbusters, God is My Shrink, which is a very unusual book. That's why I had to self-publish that one. I received a direct understanding that I was to write a book about my relationship between me and a skeptic named Joe Smith. That came very specifically to me in the middle of the night one time when I couldn't sleep. And so there was another minor character coming very late, about the 12th part of the book, and Holly Holmes. But then in the 10th revision, the revisioning to me is also how God works, not just in the original writing, but also in the revising. But in about the 10th revision out of 12 revisions, I moved, I'm sure God's leading, Holly Holmes up to the third part out of 14 rather than 10th. And she became a major character. So it just surprises me that that things come out of my imagination, and that God has guided me to do, because he gets all the credit, because I pray every day, God, what do you want me to do through Jesus today? And what do you want me to write about? And give me your words to write, and so forth. I pray that every day. And so I'm thankful that he answers me. I have not had, in 13 years of writing, I have not had a writer's block. And I think it's probably because God knows that I started at almost 66 years old. I'm 79 now. I'll admit it. I'm an old guy, but I have a young heart. But in these 13 years, God has led me and given me all kinds of ideas. I've got 2 books on the back burner while we do the festival. One, a Bible study about secular humanism, and another book, a novel about an indoor swimming pool. I go swimming half an hour a day whenever I can get there, to lap swim, and so that's a mystery novel. So these ideas come. I got that idea to that last novel when I was swimming one lap coming back, and I saw that empty chair in the corner, and And so the idea came to me that I should name this novel The Invisible Lifeguard, because he didn't show up one day. He always sat there, but he, in the fiction, um, and so the whole novel is partly about what happened to him, and partly about the consequences to people who might have been involved. So that's the kind of thing. It's really interesting. I can't explain it. Basically, it's just an idea that floats into my mind, and I just sense that it's God's leading, and so I've got to fulfill it. And since I started so late, I'm highly motivated, to write, and because I have limited years. I figure probably I'll live until about 105, or I have pictured myself at 100 publishing or writing and publishing books yet. So I've got another 21 years at least, maybe, but that's up to God. But my internal organs are going great, so I never know. But there's that motivation that God has given me to keep writing and publishing. Okay, another question. Who is your influence writing this book? Well, I've heard a lot about elections the last year or two, and in the book 2104, coming out next Wednesday on Amazon and other platforms, the Major Crimes Unit investigates white collar crime. Scams, for financial gain that criminals do, and also there's one that one would call election fraud, and so that all the talks about elections got me to researching very thoroughly what that is, and so you'll if you read that book, and I welcome you to do it, 2104, the Hindu and the Christian, Farhan, the criminologist, and his partner have a lot of discussions, and he has a discussion with an atheist couple as well in that book. So, but then there are these three basic crimes that they investigate together. So I've been also, another thing about these novels is that I've been very, very interested in justice. God is a God of justice. He's very just, perfectly just. And in the Bible, I mean, it's very clear. I've been reading through the Bible again for the umpteenth time, and I see very clearly in the prophets, for example, the Old Testament, God is a God of perfect justice, and His justice comes through in the world around me. When I watch crime dramas, I call them justice dramas, like NCIS. Which has been on for many years on CBS. The fascination to me is how the investigators can solve these crimes, and so that's gone all the way back to early justice dramas like Perry Mason, and then Andy Griffith played a part of a defense attorney, and I've watched Law and Order and all the other ones that came out of Law and Order. I've enjoyed that kind of thing, and to me they show God's justice operating in His world, in the minds of the writers and the actors and everything. And when the criminals start winning all the time, I'm going to be out of there. No more. but to me, it shows God's justice, and His world reflects Him dimly at times, very much in times. But justice is what He is. And at the last day, there's going to be a final judgment day, and everything people have done and said and thought will be brought to light, and the only way we escape His justice of guilty is through Jesus Christ, where God, when we first believe in him, in the three in one God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, in one God, when we believe that he justifies us, and that word is a technical legal term saying you're not guilty. And it's not because of anything we've done for that. And that's the amazing thing. It's all by grace through faith. The faith that he gives us. So we can't even brag about our faith because he gives it as his free gift. So I've been very interested in the justice matters, and that's also the background behind that book, 2104, how white collar criminals can try to get away with things for a while, but then we hope that justice will prevail. And it may or may not in that book. So you'll have to, you might want to read it to see what happens in those three different crimes. So any other questions? There's one. How did you come up with the title of your books? Did you have a lot to choose from? Well, I don't know exactly how it happened, but my imagination, I'm a kid at heart. And I enjoy having fun and playing around with the language, of course, because I was an English teacher, the fourth major I considered, and that was the one God used to prepare me for writing as well. I just enjoy playing around with the language, and God uses that to bring about some very interesting titles. Doubtbusters, God is My Shrink comes from two movies. You can guess what they are. And Divided Together, it really describes what happens in the book, where Farhan the Christian is divided from, in terms of religious belief, from the Hindu woman, and then in the second book, atheists, and in the third book, Hindu and also atheists that he meets, and they're part of his crime group. So it was just kind of natural that my imagination would come up with Divided Together, because of the contrast, but also the comparison between Farhan and the other people in his major crime group. And then early in the 2084, the first book, Divided Together 2084, I began to see that putting it into the future would be fascinating, because I tried to imagine what would happen with the transportation and especially the technology that far in advance, 2084, 2094, and 2104. And so I really enjoyed doing that. And it may not be at all the way I imagined it, but that was part of the challenge of writing all three books. Yeah, to me, it's really a blast. Writing and putting together a book, I just thoroughly enjoy it. It's just a lot of fun, and with my English teaching background, God prepared me for this. English teaching background, that was a huge help, and I was also an outside editor for Kriegel Books here in Grand Rapids, and that it was that helped me too with the editorial side, and then of course all my watching of justice dramas, all that comes together into all three of these mystery novels. So that's kind of my answer. If I didn't answer it completely, please let me know. Any other questions you have? Anyone? Oh, yes. Okay, question from a fairgoer. what was the most challenging experience writing this book? As with all three of the books, 2104 now is the one, the primary one we're talking about. But the most challenging aspect was, now how am I going to provide hidden clues in the text, and hidden devices, hidden people, and so forth, and that would perhaps create a lot of suspense that come out later. I won't go into that any further, but that's what happens. And to me, as readers, I would invite you to try to guess. For a while, you know who the criminal is, perhaps, but how the justice system is going to try to catch, number one, and also to bring them to justice, and whether they are able to do that or not. So you might say the challenge is to provide that suspense as long as possible, so that you, as the reader, may be able to guess what's going to happen, and find out whether you're right. So that's part of the fun. That's part of the fun, trying to arrange it so that readers will have that opportunity, but also so that I'll foil you into thinking it's one thing, but it's not that. Anyway, that's just a little bit of fun. But so that's pretty much my challenge in writing these books. And I, according to readers who have read it, I think that I haven't found anybody who guessed ahead of time if the criminal is hidden, what who that is, basically, in the novel, or the clues that would be important. That's kind of hidden early in the novel and then revealed. So I haven't found anybody who guessed those, and so I'd love to hear from you if you guessed it ahead of time. That would be interesting to me, and you wouldn't offend me at all. So yeah, there's a little boy down inside of me. I'm not sure exactly where here, but that little boy has existed from early in my childhood, in spite of all kinds of tragedies and things that I have gone through. Somehow God has helped me be joyful and to have the kind of curiosity that writers of especially mystery novels need. Curiosity about life. And I'm sure that's why God preserved that in me, in spite of the struggles, the suffering that I've experienced and people near me have experienced. So that's what it takes to be a good writer, I think, also. And that becomes the challenge of creating the books, and yet the joy of it. Making it so that the reader will enjoy it, enjoy the suspense, enjoy the results, and I hope that I've done that well. And people tell me that in the first two novels, anyway, that I have. But that's all to God's credit. God guides me through that whole process through prayer. So that's my answer to that. Any other questions you have? Okay, Fair Gore, please share the story behind the cover. Oh, the cover. Yeah, there's a big eye on the cover. If you've seen the slideshow, that 2104 has a big eye. on the cover. It's not my eye, but my publisher brought it up, and I approved it. And the story there is that the criminologist Farhan and his major crimes police group of detectives. They have at their disposal such good ways to uncover crime and to try to bring it to justice, and that's kind of the idea. The investigative process is like an eye looking, looking into the investigation part of it, and also to the justice part of it. So that's the idea, and divided together 2104 is kind of self-explanatory because I just explained divided together what it means. So that's the idea. Okay, any other questions? Good questions today. What about your most favorite experience writing this book? I enjoy Farhan's family. He has a son and a daughter, and his wife Shirley, and I've really enjoyed at this point. See, in the first novel, Farhan's single. Most of the book. Hey, I'm giving something away here. Oh no. Anyway, and in the second book, 2094, the family moves back into the States in Indianapolis, and what I enjoyed is that they're bonding together because of the extreme atheist culture around them, the aggressive atheist culture that is starting now, or has been starting here in the States, and I think will be continuing to grow. At least that's my idea. That resulted in 2094. See, I can't even keep track of all these novels. I'm on to other projects, but anyway, 2094. What I enjoy is how they try to cope with the intrusive nature of this atheism, and how they joke about it, and how they deal with being persecuted, and I won't say much more about that because I think in 2094 that is the case, and so then in the third book, 2104, there's a lot less persecution. There's a lot more freedom, but in 10 years later. But then Matt, their son, is off at Purdue University, and he's taking up criminology like his dad, but he wants to go on all the family outings, weekend outings, and there are some really surprising things that happen on those outings, and it some of it relates to the Farhan's cases. So to get the family at the base, at the center of these novels, 2104 and the one 10 years before it, 2094, was something I really wanted to do. Something like the drama, the police drama that was on CBS for years. Let's see. Now I forget. See, my memory's terrible. But anyway, at the last hour of the evening of the Reagan family, they had every episode. They had a family get together, a family dinner. Well, I kind of stole that idea, and don't tell anybody, okay? please. But I kind of got that idea from them a little bit, and the family, the Christian family in both of those novels, 2094 and 2104, is kind of the center of it, especially their outings and their suppers and so forth. So I think you'll enjoy that if you read them. Okay, I thought I saw a message and it disappeared. Oh, there we go. Do any of your books talk about social issues as well? Yes, they do. And I don't want to give much away, but in the first book, 2084, Divided Together 2084, one of the crimes that they investigate in the Muslim land was because of a law that was there banning most abortions. And so there are black market abortionists involved, and that investigates a social issue, of course, and a pretty hot button one nowadays. So that book, Divided Together 2084, does that. And of course, in moral issues, social moral issues are in the second book, 2094, because the atheist culture has allowed a lot of immorality. So that's a social issue or a moral issue that certainly is talked about there. And in the other one, the 2104 coming out next Wednesday, the question that is there is, can you how can you be a Christian when the culture around you is so open that everybody and anybody will be rescued in the next life from and you as a Christian believe you of course rightly so in my view in the Bible only through Jesus Christ. So there's a social religious issue that is explored quite a bit, and also belief and unbelief, along with how in all of the novels, the social issue is how can criminals really justify doing their crimes, whether they're violent or nonviolent. And that social issue is pervades all of it, because he's a criminologist, and some of the scenes are between him and his students in the university. So they discuss a number of issues like that. But otherwise, there isn't a lot, but there is a good share of it that you'll find in all three of the novels, 2084, 2094, and 2104, in those years in the future. Okay, any other questions you have? A question from Fairgore. Who is the first person you talked to when you finally decided that you're going to start writing a book? What was their reaction? Well, I talked to God. No, he planted a very firm thought in my imagination and thinking. I was a pastor, and my last church was in South Dakota on a Native American reservation. Of course, there you go back to the underdog thing. I accepted the call there because Native Americans have been underdogs a lot in American history. So I was very open to going there. But one night, a little over a year before I retired, I thought I was going to preach and teach in different churches in retirement, like a lot of pastors do. But I was up, I was awake, and I couldn't sleep. And I suddenly got this idea. Write a book. Now, this wasn't in verbal words, but it was a clear thought in my mind. Write a book about you as yourself in a personal relationship with a 30-something skeptic named Joe Smith. Now that came right out of the dark, not the blue, the dark of the night. And I didn't think I'd be doing writing in retirement, but that then I went. I just mentioned this to my wife, and she said, "Well, that makes sense. You were an English teacher and an outside editor, and all these things." And she said that makes a lot of sense that you would do that. And then I talked to some of the other people in the church, small church there on the reservation. They really encouraged me. So that's the answer, pretty much to your question. Okay, any other questions? Okay, a question from a fairgoer. Has it always been your calling to become a pastor? How young were you when you realized? Well, I was an unbeliever, a total unbeliever, figuring that God was somewhere else the first 16 years of my life. I followed my dad's unbelief, and he was an unbeliever until he was 77 years old when God grabbed a hold of him and he came to believe in Jesus. But I was an unbeliever. I figured, well, God may be out there somewhere, but I don't want to follow him at all. And so God talked me into, when we were attending a Baptist church, Mom dragged us boys to church when we'd rather stay home with Dad. So we were attending a Baptist church, and suddenly I heard about this God that the Baptist preachers were talking about, and I began to investigate the Bible itself. And that's when I started reading the Bible after God convinced me. But the question was, is the Bible the truth? Is it from God or just from humans? And is Jesus God as well as he said he was? And is he man? And also, is God real? Well, through a process of thinking that I share with readers in What God Has Done, my God biography, I call it, God convinced me of the reality of those three things. So that's when, at 16, God converted me from a total unbeliever to the beginning of belief in my life. And it's been since 16 until I'm now 79. Yeah, I look awfully young, So, but anyway, I'm young at heart, I tell you, but not. My body says you're old. Anyway, so God really convinced me, and so I've been convinced ever since, and growing in that being convinced. So it's so that's when God took a hold of me, and he convinced me primarily intellectually about the truth of the Bible, but then and of course the other parts of my personality, my emotions, my decision making, those were partly touched, but later it took many hard experiences to bring me along to believe, to match my will to his will, and also my emotions to the kind of emotions that God wants. But I also detail all of that in my long God biography, 63,000 words, the longest book I ever wrote. So all about what God has done, and that's what the title is. So so that's pretty much it. That's when I became a Christian. rather than being an unbeliever. Okay, any other questions you have? Do you believe in divine intervention? Well, I believe that God created the universe. And according to the Bible, he has intervened many times, especially in the key turning points in the history of the Bible. And he's used very weak people to be strong in his strength, in his power through Jesus. And that kind of intervention happens in every believer's life, because God gives the new birth. And I would call that an intervention in our lives if we believe. Now, if we believe and we don't remember when that happened, that's fine. In fact, it's wonderful that when you were a little child, perhaps somebody shared the good news with you, and God gave you the new birth, and you don't remember that. Because that's the normal, that's the best way. It happened to me when I was 16, and that's the abnormal way. Because it's just natural to grow up in a Christian family and come to believe when you're young, and have that belief grow slowly throughout your life. That's the best way. But God sometimes has to intervene in our lives by allowing, not causing, certain amounts of suffering. And he did that in my life many times. As a father disciplines his children, so God disciplines us in order to point us in the right direction. I ran away from a call to the ministry when I discovered that the college I went to and the church I was a member of at 18 years old required a Greek major. Well, I wasn't going to climb that Mount Everest, of a Greek major. And so I was like Jonah in the Bible. I just ran away. I said, no way am I going to do that. And so that's how I got into English after that was the fourth major I considered. And so my will was not in tune with God. And he provided 10 events to point me to go back to seminary and to become a pastor. And one of those was very traumatic, the death of our second boy. He doesn't cause any suffering, but he does allow it for our benefit. It's Satan and our own human race's sin that brings about suffering directly. So that's kind of my answer. I forget what the question was, but that's what I'm trying to. Oh yes, please share your favorite excerpt from one of your books. Okay. My favorite excerpt. I like them all. The whole thing, all of my books, 9 books, are all an excerpt, of what I like. But maybe I can share a little bit here. In 2084, Farhan, of course, is the center of that book. He was single. And I'll just pick out a chapter, okay, because I like them all. And so chapter 26 of 2084, it's the heading is a hopeful break in the case. On Tuesday, December 16th, Akila, that's Farhan's Muslim woman as his partner, Akila again visited Harley David and Sons Camel and Cycle Sales and Service. Now, that's a scene in my book, and it's an important scene, but I'm not going to reveal much more about that. But that's a little bit of a takeoff, of a certain motorcycle kind of motorcycle. What is it again? Anyway, David and Sons camel and cycle sales and service. It still makes me laugh how I came up with that. To have her vehicle serviced. This time, the attendant was ready with an answer for a question about the building's 3 square lookout towers. Here in town where I live, we have a Harley Davidson a little ways away, and it's built that way. So I really chose the building car architecture, so to speak, to include in my future 2084 Muslim culture. They're the 3 square lookout towers. When she sat down to pay her bill, he said, "I remembered to ask your question. The towers mean that we are always looking out for you." That's kind of out of my imagination. I don't know what the meaning is for sure. But the owner also thought that 3 is a good number. So 3 towers is another possibility. "I see. Interesting," said Akila. Afterwards, she walked out on the performance platform to enjoy the view of the Palm Grove to the west and the suspended 6-lane highway to the north. And that really is what our Harley Davidson here in town is really close to the expressway. But it imagines the kind of transportation there and so forth. So what I would invite you to do, if you like to listen to audiobooks, Audible is now getting ready my audiobook that I recorded in my own voice, and so if you want to listen to that when it's ready, I don't know, it's taken about 2 years. With the pandemic, it's been terrible. Everything slows down, but it shouldn't be too long before my divided together 2084 is going to be published. So it's not just in paperback; it's also in ebook, Kindle, and also in audiobook in the near future. Maybe it'll take another 5 years. I don't know. So there's another comment. Oh, an audiobook sounds awesome. Yeah, I enjoyed recording it. I put music in between the chapters to kind of heighten the suspense and so forth. So kind of pretty music I thought was good. Not everybody, I suppose, would like it, but I think most people will. And so as soon as it comes out on Audible, then you will be able to get it. I wish it had come out a whole lot sooner, but they did accept it, and they are doing it. They are producing it, and you will hear me reading it. So maybe you have something to look forward to then. Okay, any other questions you have? Here we go. What's your take on the saying unity in diversity? It depends on what the context is. Why it's being mentioned or written, because it depends. For example, in all 3 of these novels, you have a Christian criminologist, and you have criminologists who believe other things because of their religious background or upbringing, and they are diverse, but they're unified in this one purpose: to catch criminals. Now, Farhan does not try to talk them into his belief, and I don't think any Christian should do that either. And my approach has always been, I will share what God has done in my life and what I believe based on the Bible. And so, but I will never try to talk or argue people into believing or experiencing what I have. And that is very important, because because that's what Jesus said: love your enemies. And love means respecting them for what they believe. You may disagree with what they believe, but respecting them as people, fellow created humans. We're all humans, and we're all created in a unity in the human race, but we have a great diversity in the human race. But that doesn't mean that we have to accept everyone else's ideas. We must respect them, love them, regardless of what they believe or what their lifestyle is. We don't need to love their lifestyle or adopt their lifestyle, but we need to unconditionally love them as individuals, as created humans. So that's the kind of unity and diversity that I like. It's kind of similar to the idea agree to disagree. We can still remain friends even though we disagree with each other, and that takes leaving anger out of it. In other words, no argument, no trying to control other people. There's a verse in Revelation 22. It's Revelation 22:11. You might look it up if you have a Bible, and if you are a Christian. 22:11 of Revelation says, I can't memorize very well, so I will paraphrase it. It says, let the person who's wicked or sinful or leads a lifestyle that isn't Christian, let them be and do what they want to, but let them do it, and let the people who are believers and lead a lifestyle that's pleasing to God, let them do it. So it's basically saying, don't in anger try to control other people with your beliefs. Just all we're called to do as Christians is to witness, and a witness on the stand in a courtroom. See, I'm very interested in that, and that's in all three of my novels. A witness merely says what they experienced and what they saw. And then, of course, the attorney tries to bring his spin on it, or her spin, but it's just a matter of living and let living, so to speak. That's another. Live and let live is another saying that's somewhat like that. So that's basically my answer to that question, and I hope I've satisfied you with the answer. If not, give me another question. Okay, anybody else? Or okay, a question from a fairgoer. I'm curious, sir. Well, been a long time since I've been called sir. Wow, that's hard to take. Thank you. What do you do? In your idle time, aside from writing and work? Well, I don't have work for money. I'm retired. I've been retired for 13 years, and I'm a retired pastor. But what I do is all day, well, all afternoon and evening. I'm a late person, so I'm not too much good in terms of thinking in the morning. So around noon or so, after I come back from the swimming pool, around 1 or 2, I'll start writing, and then I'll write until about 7 or 7:30 at night. And then I'll have supper, and what I'll do in the evening to relax and to enjoy God's world is watch good, positive dramas on Netflix. I'll do sports events and do them quickly. with my fast forward and 30-second button on my remote for Dish Network. And but I like sports, and 6 sports I watch. So I'll record them also if they're my really favorite. Right now, my team is playing football team, Purdue University. That's why I put Purdue in my novels. Okay, that's a little of the background. My dad graduated from there as a civil engineer, and my daughter got her PhD there, and my brother went there, and so I became a Purdue fan when I was a teenager. But they, it's I like that team a lot, and they are underdogs. That's what I started out talking to you about today, because yeah, they have been the upset people. The football team has upset 2 top 3 opponents, even though Purdue was not rated or ranked in the top 25, which hasn't happened in the Big Ten since 1960. So that's been a big accomplishment for Purdue, and now they're playing another top 5 team, Ohio State. So I will catch up with them later this evening, and that's what I do. And then I'll watch it quickly, or less so, depending on what happened. And sports, I'll watch sports, and also dramas, positive dramas on Netflix. What is your most favorite show on Netflix? Well, I'm following. I have followed up to 9 different novels, 1 episode at a time, going through them, and then the next episode at a time, going through all of them. And now it's 6 because the others I ran out of episodes. You know, but they. I think my favorite of all. Among the drama episodes, I love comedies, clean comedies. You know, there's some really funny, not way back. But on Netflix, what I've been watching, I think Heartland, which is a Canadian drama. I was a pastor for 5 years in the next province over in Saskatchewan, in Saskatoon, and this one's near the Rocky Mountains, the Canadian Rockies. If you ever get a chance to go see the Canadian Rockies up in Alberta and British Columbia on the border there. Oh, it's just wonderful. And so this ranch is there, the Heartland Ranch, and the woman, the young woman Amy is what they call a horse whisperer. In other words, she takes problem horses and tries to help them perform the way the owner wants them to. And that is a wonderful drama, and the relationships, and it's positive. There aren't too many swear words, and they are upstanding, good people, and yet they get into problems, and so forth, and the relationships are broken, and then they have to try to repair them and so forth. But that is probably my favorite of all that I've been watching lately, anyway. So Heartland, and I also enjoy science fiction movies that are on there, and the positive ones like Star Trek and Star Wars. I enjoy all of those. I've been a Trekkie. For Star Trek since the original one was live on TV back in the 60s. It was only on for 3 years, but look at what's happened since then. All the movies and other series and so forth. They've all been good because they're trying to solve human problems with technology and ingenuity. And I like that kind of thing, solving problems. And well, my novels have the same thing, only they're mysteries, So that's what I enjoy doing. And I like Netflix because I don't get any commercials. And I skip commercials when I record something and I want to watch it. So, okay. Any other questions you have? Good questions today. Well, I guess we're about done. Any other questions you have? Okay, well, um, let's see. Oh, there's one question from a fairgoer. Do you enjoy music? Ah, there's an interesting question. I haven't been asked that before. Thank you for the question. Um, uh, when I was growing up, I'm so old that I remember the Beatles live on Ed Sullivan. Now that shows that I'm pretty old, but but I grew up in the Beatle and Elvis era, and I liked a few of the songs of each of those, but I never became a big fan, unlike some people, and so um, I liked easy listening music along the way, you know, here and there. But what I've found to be best for my writing um, was has been and continues to be as background for my writing is music that doesn't have words in it because words distract me. Singers, for example. And so I have chosen, I became one who was interested in classical music when first became a Christian. I learned that the Messiah by Handel was written with biblical words. And that got me interested. And then I had um, a music appreciation class in college that I took. And that really got me interested in classical music. I remember sitting in the library in a booth, you know, listening on my on headphones and listening to music in order to identify it, so I could, so I could pass a test in it. But I love the harmony and the power of classical music, especially by orchestras, because to me it reflects and kind of reveals to me the harmony and power of God that He built into the creation. You know, the order and the design of His creation, though the creation fell with the human race, but His glory shines through, as several psalms say. But so I choose to listen to classical music as a background, and what happens with me then is that um, the classical music kind of fades into the background a little bit. It's relaxing. I'm not distracted by the words, and I can appreciate God's order and harmony and power revealed through that music. Beethoven, Dvorak, Tchaikovsky, Mozart, Handel, all their non-choral and non-singing masterpieces. It just is wonderful, and then I can concentrate on my writing. So that's the kind of music I enjoy and listen to, especially while I'm writing. So that kind of it's the modern music to me has less harmony to it. It's kind of disharmonious, and so it just kind of I'm just I don't know. It just doesn't agree with my ear, or both ears. You know, both of them. So anyway, that's just a personal thing, and it does help me write. It really does. So that's what the music. That's the first time I've been asked that in the 3 days here. Thank you for that question. Any other questions, comments? Okay. A question from another fairgoer. Since you like watching shows and enjoy music as well, uh, do you also like musical movies? Um, uh, the one that I like the most came out in the 80s. I believe in the early 80s. It was, no, in the mid 80s. Amadeus. And it was Mozart. Um, uh, uh, it was a theory that they proposed in fiction, but a real character, Mozart, um, and they had Mozart's music throughout, and it's the only time I was interested in opera because it fit in with the story. I'm not usually interested in opera because they're singing in Italian or some other language, and they have it on Saturday afternoon on public radio. I just can't imagine listening to opera on the radio or anytime really. Um, just not my personal preference, but I enjoy music if it fits into a dramatic uh, uh, context. But I haven't run into too many movies that I want to watch that have music otherwise. That one was really good, but I no, I prefer to have dramas, watch dramas, comedies, and other things, um, uh, absent the person walking down the street and bursting into song. You know, it just doesn't quite fit my desires and my expectations. So, so that's just personal preference as far as movies are concerned. Okay, well, thanks for the question, though. Any other ones? My all-time fave is the movie The Sound of Music. Now, I do have liked that, and I have a different reason, perhaps. The music is pretty. My wife and I watched The Sound of Music, just before, and what I enjoyed about that movie was the mountains, the Alps. You know, they're beautiful, and that's one thing I'd love to see in Europe, but I don't think I'll ever get there. But that the movie where people just start singing, you know, as part of the it just doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't agree with me, but hey, you know, who am I? And I'm just one person. So, and I'm certainly no expert on music. My my I had a piano teacher, Mrs. Lundy, poor thing. She 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 was she after 6 weeks of my music lessons, she turned to me on the piano bench and said, "You're a lost cause." Well, it pointed me away from any kind of job in music, that's for sure. But anyway, that was she was right. Actually, I was a lost cause because I sang in the junior choir at church until my voice changed, and that was my excuse to get out because I didn't believe those words that I was singing. That was when I was around 10, something like that. And so music, our household when I was growing up was not a musical one. Mom would tinker around on the piano. We had a piano, but she didn't do that very often. And thought that I should have piano lessons, but yeah, I was a lost cause, all right. But anyway, no, I tend to look in terms of clean comedies and dramas for my movies, and a few other kinds, but those are the main kinds. Thanks for asking, though. Any other questions you might have? if you look at my profile on the booth, you'll see a little different Bruce Leiter. I just happened to grow something, you know. I grew something, and I explained earlier on Thursday to people at the booth that my wife, when I was teaching junior high English, 8th grade English, I had hepatitis, and during that time, I just grew a beard. 2 months I was out of, I was out, and our whole family had hepatitis, and I grew that beard. It was a little different color, just a little bit of a different color, but I had that beard, and I liked it because it was good for discipline. When I would smile, it looked like I was grim, and with that darker beard. And so but then I went into sales management. It just at that time in the early or the late 60s, it wasn't beards were not, highly thought of. So I shaved for that, and then I shaved later as I was a pastor. It was just kind of expected of pastors to be clean shaven. And then when I retired 13 years ago, and my wife and I were coming to West Michigan, I asked her, do you suppose I might grow a beard now in retirement? And she turned to me and she said, I don't think so. So I didn't, to please her, just like I'd make the bed because she expected it to be made. And I wanted to please her. I loved her. And she died just a year ago. And God's given me peace about that, which is amazing. But anyway, that's another story, as this book shows you. But anyway, so now I have a beard. That's as a bachelor, and in a bachelor pad, my condo has become a bachelor's pad, and my man cave down here with my big TV has become my man cave. I suppose it's the Bruce Leiter man cave, so that's pretty much my answer to that question. Any other questions you have? Okay, a question from Fairgoer. I don't know if you want to go in a fan. Do you plan on writing new books for the year 2022? Yes, I have a couple manuscripts that I hope to publish that I've already written. One of them compares the Christian life to a marathon, and the other talks about that one has to do with how to get inner peace, and I'm going to publish that early next year. And the name of it is A Pathway to Permanent Peace. And I have another one that I haven't published yet, but maybe published. I'm not sure. I'm going to pray about that, as I pray about everything, in terms of my publishing career. And I've finished about 14 chapters of another mystery novel, a different kind of mystery novel about an indoor swimming pool at an athletic club, where a lifeguard disappears, and the whole thing is the aquatics director and one of the lifeguards investigate what happened to Charles. And so I'm working on that one alongside of a devotional Bible study that has to do with how to overcome secular humanism, which is very strong in our culture, where secular means that God is separate from the human race, doesn't have anything to do with it, and humanism, of course, centers when you stop focusing on God, you focus on humans and their abilities and achievements and so forth. So how to overcome leaving God out of your life, basically, and that happens even in Christians' lives. They might go to a sporting event and never even think about God. Well, how to overcome that? So those are two things I'm working on, and little bit of a pause now, of course, with this festival going on. But I will be in December going forward with those. So those are the books that I'm thinking. And this winter, part of my time will be I'll be recording audio books of my second book. The first book, the first novel, 2084, I did an audiobook, and that's coming through Audible at least this century, sometime in this century. It's taken a long time, but anyway, it should be coming. But the second book, 2094 and 2104, which will come out next Wednesday. I don't even have a copy yet. I hope to do audiobooks of 2094, but I hope to get both of those done, 2104, so that my full trilogy will be 3 different audiobooks. I do it in the winter because they don't mow the grass around here. In the winter. You should come to West Michigan sometime. Last night we got snow. We got snow on the rooftops. Of course, it melted mostly on the grass, but there was some snow in the grass. And I always think of, when I see the snow, that God has made believers' sins whiter than snow, and thank Him for it. But that's why did I get into that? Well, anyway, so anyway, that's kind of my answer to that question. Anything else? Okay. If the opportunity should arise, do you plan on venturing to new book genres? Well, I've done nonfiction. I've done fictional devotional Bible study, or nonfiction devotional Bible studies, and mystery novels, fiction, with some nonfiction in it, with the religious discussions. So I don't know what other genres I could go into. Maybe you have suggestions for me. But those are the genres so far that God has led me into, and I will keep turning out books as long as God gives me the grace to have a good mind, and I'll be turning out books and other media, audiobooks. I hope to make. Maybe this winter I hope I can use my big TV to do a video course of one of my books. I've been thinking. I think God wants me to get into do this book, Overcome Modern Idols, Beat 31 False Gods, which I wrote and is available. And I think maybe God might want me to do a video course of that, to add videos and pictures from my TV, because my computer's connected up to it. It's the largest computer monitor I've ever seen, which I enjoy, and I'll be right next to it, explaining and help teaching along with the video part. So that's kind of what I'm getting into. Actually, rather than more other types of literature, I think God wants me to branch out into all these video and audio kinds of things, so that people can experience them in different ways. So I think that's where God is leading me. He guided me to do the whole first novel, 2084, and the music with it, and I hope Audible will come out before the end of the year with it. But well, I'm not holding my breath. So, okay, any other questions you have? Oh, there's one. What's the most important thing for you to consider when writing a novel? The most important thing for me to consider. Well, to me, it has to have. Oh, that the most important thing I learned at a writers group. I've been part of a couple writers groups and 3 writers conventions and so forth. What I've learned as the most important thing about a novel is show, don't tell. And what I mean by that is show the reader through action and the dialogue, rather than tell them what's happening as the narrator. So that's I think you'll see that in all my novels, how I did that. It's showing the reader what the plot is supposed to continue with, rather than telling them all about it. Maybe one example. I don't know if I can come up with something off the top of my head, but the writer, the dark figure raised the axe high and plunged it into the you name it, into the victim. Okay, that's showing it. Whereas if you talked about it, it would be there in the room. There were terrible murders that took place. See, that's telling about it, and showing it has to be demonstrating the action. In some of my novels, the only negative things that some of the readers have come up with is one of the compliments I received was in my one of my books, I had a bank robbery, and one of the readers said to me, "Was that real?" Well, it was all made up, but I showed the action rather than telling that it happened. See, and of course, some people have been a little upset about the violence that took place in the first 2 novels. The last one, the third one that's coming out next Wednesday doesn't have that, 2104. But what I do is I show the action up to the violent event, and then I show afterwards the results. But I don't show the gory details. See, I don't believe in that. Why would a person make it so gory, like some of these scary films? They have blood spurting and all that kind of stuff. I mean, why would you make people scared and upset by that? And so I never watch horror films. To me, that's waste of time for me. But that's just my opinion. But yeah, I try to show rather than tell. Remember in school, some of us, I think even back when I was young, which is a long time ago, early 50s, we would have show and tell. Well, don't tell, but show. So that's the main thing I learned through with other writers, and I've tried to do that throughout my novels, and I think you'll see that. So there's my answer. Any other questions you have about writing or the weather or whatever you want to ask about? Question from another fairgoer. What are the common traps for aspiring writers? I think the biggest trap that I hear all the time on Facebook is that they just don't know. They just are scared of starting a book. They want to make it so perfect that they never get started, or they just start slightly and it's imperfect, so they quit. And I think that's one of the big things. To me, you've got to get over that fear of it's not being absolutely perfect. Because hey, my first book, it's a novel, Doubtbusters, took 12 revisions to try to get it as good as possible, and so God works in the writing and in the revising. Don't try to expect it to be perfect the first time. Just start writing. And if it stinks, then you can undo the stink with revising it later. So that's the thing. I think many writers get the writer's blocks because they try to have it perfect in their brain, and in the computer, or if they write it out, rather than just start writing and keep writing. Maintain a schedule. This is the time that I'm going to set apart to write. And I would say, as a Christian, ask God when I, what I should write and when I should write, and ask His help in maintaining that schedule. But it takes scheduling and it takes discipline. But not being able to get started with a book, or having just a small fraction of a book done, and being dissatisfied with it. Well, hey, we're all imperfect. I mean, I'm imperfect. I had 10 revisions that took place with 2084, my first novel, or for my first mystery novel, that is, and 10 revisions afterwards, after that first manuscript. So we're all imperfect. We aren't perfect. So I invite you to just write and keep improving it then afterwards. Okay, that's my answer. Any others? Okay, another fairgoer. What is your message for all aspiring writers? My message is keep your day job. And that's true. I have a regular income, and I don't have to depend on my writing in order to live from day to day. I have a pension and a Social Security, and those God has provided for me, so that I'm free of financial worry, in terms of whether my book would be published, or whether it'll be sell a lot of books or whatever. I would say, if you have a regular income, yes, that's fine. But if you say, I'm going to become a full-time writer and depend on my writing, I would say, don't do it until you're famous, until you've sold enough books so that you have regular income. But the problem is that'll be a short time. If you sell a certain amount of books, that will be short, because readers won't move on to other books, perhaps, and so you have to have a good income, or a regular income anyway, that you can live on, and then write on the side until God makes you into a famous writer or an author. And so that's my advice. Very, very important advice, I think. Okay, thank you for that question. That was a good one. Any others? Well, Goodbye. Well, anyway, any other questions before we wrap up here? Hopefully, we won't get too tightly wrapped up. Yeah, you can see I enjoy playing with language. As an English teacher, I would begin my Monday classes with jokes that depend on language, that play around with language. And I knew the high school kids liked it when they groaned. Of course, in high school, you wouldn't possibly give any indication that you liked something the teacher said. So that's just not acceptable. So I knew when they groaned that they kind of liked it, and when they said nothing, I knew it was a flop, But I would do these jokes at the beginning, and then I would kind of, as an English teacher, kind of point out how the joke used language, English, in certain ways. So it was really partly instruction, partly entertainment, but I think some of them enjoyed it. And by the end of the year, in English, the favorite subject of everybody, a few people were still listening, so I would teach for them. Okay, well, let's see, another one. I will take note of your tips. Thank you. Well, you're welcome. Glad I could help. I'm glad I could say something that would help you. Another one. It's great to have you, sir. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. May God bless all of you in all that you do as readers, writers, or whatever. I pray that God will be with you and bless you. And may He strengthen you and give you words that that are pleasing to Him to write or to read. So, anything else? Well, we're getting near the 2-hour mark, so maybe unless there's another question or comment, I think I'll bow out and go get supper. In Eastern time zone, it's getting to 5 o'clock, and I'll be back at 6 to 7:30 is the time anyway. Whether it lasts that long, that's up to the fairgoers. So one last question. Well, thank you all for visiting my booth. Visit Bruce's website, it says, from Reader's Magnet, growingtoknowgod.org. growingtoknowgod.org. And my blog is on there, and all the information under spiritual resources about my books. All that information is on there too. So either under the blog with my writings and also my writings, I guess, under spiritual resources. So invite you to visit that blog that my son set up and that I try to fill up. So may God bless you. Goodbye.